What if I told you that one of the most dangerous things increasing your cancer risk after 60 may not be a dramatic symptom, a bad scan, or even your family history, but the quiet inflammation building inside your body while you go about your normal day? Most older adults think cancer begins with bad luck or shows up without warning. In my years working in oncology, I have learned that many people arrive at that moment carrying the same painful question. Was something changing long before anyone noticed? That is why this conversation matters. Because after 60, the body becomes less forgiving, and one simple daily habit, walking, may do far more to push back against that silent biological drift than most people realize. I am not talking about marathons, gym memberships, or anything extreme. I am talking about a small, steady action that may help lower chronic inflammation and change the internal environment your cells live in every single day. Stay with me because this may be far more about your life than you think. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. What chronic inflammation really is after 60. Most people your age are not worried about inflammation unless something hurts. A swollen knee, an aching shoulder, a flare of arthritis, a bad tooth. That is how inflammation is usually introduced to us. It feels obvious, loud, and temporary. But after 60, the kind I worry about most as an oncologist is usually none of those things. It is the quiet kind, the kind that does not announce itself clearly, does not send you rushing to the emergency room, and does not ask for attention while it is slowly changing the ground your body stands on. If you are in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, and you have ever said to yourself, "I feel mostly okay, just a little more tired than I used to," this part matters because chronic inflammation often lives inside that kind of sentence. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like carrying extra weight around the middle for years. Sometimes it looks like poor sleep that never quite feels repaired. Sometimes it is the long habit of sitting too much, moving too little, eating in a rushed way, and assuming those choices are harmless because they feel ordinary. That is exactly why it is so dangerous. It blends into real life. What chronic inflammation really means after 60 is that the body remains in a low-grade state of biological irritation for too long. It is as if the immune system is stuck with the dimmer switch turned halfway up all the time, not enough to create a crisis you can clearly feel, but enough to wear down the system month after month and year after year. The tissues do not recover as cleanly. The blood vessels become more stressed. The metabolic signals become less stable. The cells live in an environment that is a little more chaotic, a little more inflamed, and a little less protected than they were 20 years ago. That matters more after 60 because aging changes the rules. The body is still capable of healing, but it is less forgiving. Repair is slower, immune surveillance is not as sharp. You may not bounce back from poor sleep, inactivity, excess sugar, nightly drinking, or long sedentary days the way you once did. Many older adults assume they are simply getting older when they feel more sluggish, stiff, foggy, or run down. Sometimes age is part of it, but sometimes what they are really living with is a chronic internal fire that never fully goes out. And here is where I want to be very practical with you. Do not wait for inflammation to feel dramatic before you take it seriously. Pay attention to patterns, not just symptoms. Look at your week honestly. Are you moving daily or mostly sitting? Are you sleeping deeply or just lying in bed? Are your meals helping your body recover or keeping it under strain? Are you treating fatigue like a message or just normalizing it? Those are not small questions after 60. They are early clues about the environment your cells are living in every single day. As a doctor, I can tell you this with complete honesty. Many of the biggest threats to long-term health do not begin with one terrible event. They begin with quiet biological drift. And once you understand what chronic inflammation really is, the next question becomes far more urgent. How does that silent internal fire make cancer more likely in the first? If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now let's move on to point number 2. 2. Why this silent inflammation raises cancer risk. Cancer rarely begins with a single dramatic moment. More often, it begins in a body that has been under quiet strain for a very long time. And that is exactly why silent inflammation matters so much after 60. When I explain this to older patients, I ask them to picture a home that looks perfectly fine from the outside, but has wiring inside the walls that has been overheating for years. Nothing may seem urgent today. The lights still turn on, the doors still open, but the risk is building in a place you cannot easily see. That is what chronic inflammation can do inside an aging body. It creates a kind of internal wear and tear that makes normal cells more vulnerable, less stable, and less protected than they should be. Your body is constantly repairing itself. Cells divide, old ones die off, damaged ones get replaced. In a healthy setting, that process is tightly controlled. But when inflammation stays switched on for too long, even at a low level, the environment around those cells begins to change. Chemical signals linked to inflammation can increase oxidative stress. In plain English, that means more biological friction, more cellular irritation, and more opportunities for damage to the genetic material inside the cell. Most of the time, the body catches and repairs those mistakes. But after 60, the repair systems are not always as efficient as they once were. That is where trouble can begin. The problem is not only that inflammation can increase damage, it can also interfere with the body's ability to respond to that damage appropriately. One of the most important jobs of your immune system is to notice abnormal cells early and remove them before they become dangerous. Think of it as an internal surveillance team. Chronic inflammation can make that surveillance less precise. It can exhaust the system, distort the signals, and create a setting where unhealthy cells have a better chance to survive instead of being cleared out. That does not mean inflammation automatically causes cancer every time. It means it can help create conditions that make cancer more likely to grow, persist, or escape notice. This becomes especially important after 60 because many older adults are already dealing with other quiet stressors at the same time. Extra weight around the abdomen, poor sleep, insulin resistance, inactivity, processed foods, regular alcohol use, ongoing stress, even untreated sleep apnea or gum disease. All of these can add fuel to the same inflammatory fire. What worries me is that people often normalize the whole picture. They say they are just slowing down, just getting older, just more tired than they used to be. But sometimes the body is telling a more important story. That is why I never want seniors to think of inflammation as a vague wellness buzzword. In oncology, it matters because it changes the terrain. It can make the body a less protected place and a more permissive one. And once you understand that, the next question becomes very practical, because now we have to ask something even more important. If this silent inflammation is so dangerous, why is daily walking one of the simplest and most underestimated ways to push back against it? 3. Why daily walking is the most underrated habit. I have had patients look me straight in the eye and say, "Doctor, are you really telling me that something as simple as walking could matter that much?" And I understand why they ask. After all, when people hear the word cancer, they imagine chemotherapy, scans, surgeries, genetics, and years of specialist care. They do not imagine a pair of walking shoes, a quiet sidewalk, and 20 or 30 steady minutes in the middle of an ordinary day, but that is exactly why daily walking is so underrated. It does not look dramatic enough to feel powerful, especially to someone over 60 who has already heard a lifetime of health advice come and go. What makes walking so important is not that it is flashy, it is that it is repeatable. After 60, the body benefits less from big intentions and more from steady signals. Daily walking tells the body over and over again that it is still meant to circulate well, regulate blood sugar, use energy more efficiently, and avoid settling deeper into the kind of low-grade inflammation we just talked about. It is not merely exercise. It is a daily message to the body that says, "Do not stay stuck." Many older adults miss this because they think in extremes. They assume if they are not going to a gym, lifting weights, sweating hard, or doing something intense, then it probably does not count. That is one of the most damaging misunderstandings I see. At your age, the goal is not to train like you are 40. The goal is to protect the biology you still have. A consistent walk done day after day can support circulation, help control weight gain around the middle, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce stiffness, support better sleep, and lower the kind of physical stagnation that allows chronic inflammation to stay active in the background. That is a lot of benefit from something most people dismiss as just walking. There is another reason it matters so much for seniors living in the United States. Walking fits real life. It can be done in a neighborhood, at a mall, in a driveway, inside a community center, even in short loops around the house. If balance or weather is a problem, it does not require expensive equipment, a trainer, a class schedule, or perfect energy. That matters because the best habit is not the one that sounds impressive. It is the one you will still be doing next month, next season, and next year. I also want to say this clearly for those of you who feel discouraged. If you are carrying extra weight, recovering from inactivity, dealing with arthritis, or feeling older in your body than you want to admit, walking is still one of the safest and most realistic places to begin. You do not need to earn the right to start. You start, and then your body begins to earn back some of what time has been trying to take from it. Even 10 minutes after breakfast and 10 minutes after dinner can begin changing your momentum. That said, there is a mistake many people make that quietly robs them of much of this benefit. They take one walk, feel virtuous about it, and then spend the rest of the day sitting almost without interruption. And that is where the next part becomes so important, because the wrong pattern can make even a good habit weaker than it should be. 4. Why walking works biologically, not just emotionally. One of the most common things I hear from older adults is this: "Doctor, I walk every day, so I think I'm doing pretty well." And sometimes they are. But sometimes when I look a little closer, I find that the walk has become more of a comfort story than a real protective habit. That is the mistake. People begin to believe that one short burst of movement is enough to cancel everything else their body is going through, even while they are still spending most of the day sitting, sleeping poorly, gaining abdominal weight, and sliding deeper into the same inflammatory pattern they thought they were escaping. I want to be very clear here, because this is where good intentions can quietly fool you. Walking is powerful, but it is not magic. A 10 or 15-minute stroll does not fully protect a body that remains physically stagnant for the other 14 hours of the day. It does not erase nightly overeating, chronic sleep deprivation, heavy alcohol use, or the habit of sitting for hours without interruption. I say that not to discourage you, but to protect you from a false sense of security. After 60, the body responds to patterns, not isolated moments. If the overall pattern is still sedentary, inflamed, and metabolically strained, then one walk, even a sincere one, may not be enough to stop you from losing ground. This mistake often shows up in very ordinary ways. A person takes a walk in the morning, then spends the rest of the day in a chair, at the television, in the car, or scrolling on a phone. Another person walks slowly for 10 minutes, but never gets their breathing up enough to create a real training signal for the body. Someone else walks only when they feel motivated, which means 3 days on, 5 days off, then guilt, then another restart. And many people count movement that is too scattered or too brief to meaningfully challenge the system. None of this means the effort is worthless. It means the effort may be too weak, too inconsistent, or too isolated to produce the kind of protection they are hoping for. That is especially important if you are over 60 and already dealing with stiff joints, fatigue, prediabetes, poor sleep, weight gain around the middle, or the sense that your stamina is slowly slipping. In that situation, your body does not need one symbolic walk. It needs repeated believable signals that life inside you is changing. That means walking most days, walking with enough purpose that your body notices, and breaking up long stretches of sitting so the walk is part of a larger rhythm, not a lone bright spot in an otherwise inactive day. The fix is practical. First, be honest about your total day, not just your best 20 minutes. Second, make the walk consistent enough that it becomes routine instead of negotiation. Third, build in small movement breaks between long periods of sitting. Stand, stretch, walk to the mailbox, pace during phone calls, take short laps around the house. These may sound minor, but after 60, they help turn one isolated habit into a healthier pattern. And once you understand that, the next question becomes the one that really determines whether this habit will work for you in real life. How do you build daily walking into an older body, an older schedule, and an older life without setting yourself up to fail? 5. The mistake that makes people think walking is enough when they are still losing ground. Many older adults tell me with complete sincerity, "Doctor, I walk every day, so I think I'm doing pretty well." And sometimes they are, but sometimes that walk has become more of a reassuring ritual than a true protective habit. That is the mistake I want you to see clearly. People start believing one walk is enough to cancel everything else their body is going through, even while they are still sitting for most of the day, sleeping poorly, gaining abdominal weight, and drifting deeper into the same inflammatory pattern they thought they were escaping. I say this with respect, not criticism. After 60, the body responds to patterns, not to isolated moments. A short walk in the morning does not fully protect a body that stays inactive for the next 12 hours. It does not erase long stretches in a recliner. Late-night eating, poor sleep, regular alcohol, or the habit of sitting so long that circulation, blood sugar control, and muscle activity all begin to fade into the background. Walking is powerful, but it is not magical. It works best when it is part of a healthier rhythm, not a small bright spot inside an otherwise sedentary day. This mistake often shows up in ways that feel very normal. Someone takes a slow 10-minute walk, then barely moves again until bedtime. Someone else walks only when they feel motivated, which means the habit never becomes reliable enough for the body to truly adapt. Another person checks the mental box of "I exercised," but never walks with enough purpose to raise breathing even slightly or wake the system up. None of that means the effort is worthless. It means the effort may be too weak, too inconsistent, or too isolated to create the level of protection the person is counting on. If you are over 60 and you already notice more fatigue, more stiffness, more belly weight, or less stamina than you had a few years ago, you do not need one symbolic walk. You need repeated signals that your body can trust. That means walking most days, walking with intention, and breaking up long periods of sitting so your body is not spending the rest of the day in shutdown mode. The fix is simple and honest. Look at your whole day, not just your best 20 minutes. Keep the walk, but make it steadier, more purposeful, and more consistent. Then support it by standing up more often, moving between tasks, and refusing to let one walk become your excuse to stay still the rest of the day. And once you understand that, the next question becomes very practical. How do you make this habit work in a real life after 60 without setting yourself up to quit? If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. 6. What supports this habit and what it can never replace? The danger with any good habit is that people start treating it like a shield for everything else. I have seen that happen with walking many times. A person begins taking a daily walk, feels proud of it, and rightly so, but then slowly starts believing that one habit can cover every weakness, every missed screening, every warning sign, every poor night of sleep, and every unhealthy pattern that still surrounds it. That is where I need to be very honest with you. Walking is one of the best things you can do after 60, but it works best when your body is not being pulled in the opposite direction the rest of the day. What supports walking most is not something glamorous. It is a body that is given a fair chance to recover. That means sleep matters. If you are sleeping badly night after night, waking up exhausted, snoring heavily, or dragging yourself through the day, your walk is still helping you, but the body is trying to heal in a storm. The same is true with food. You do not need a perfect diet, but you do need to stop asking your body to fight inflammation with one habit while you feed it in a way that keeps the fire burning. More vegetables, more fiber, more beans, more whole foods, less constant sugar, less heavy processed food, less mindless evening eating. Walking works better when the body is not overloaded every night and undernourished every morning. It is also supported by what you avoid normalizing. Too much alcohol, too much sitting, too much weight creeping slowly around the waist, too much dismissal of fatigue. All of that can weaken the effect of the walk. I am not saying your walk stops mattering. I am saying it matters even more when it becomes part of a larger message to the body. We are not drifting anymore. We are not letting ordinary habits quietly pull us downhill year after year. But now, I want to draw a line that matters. Walking can support your health. It can help lower risk. It can improve the internal environment your cells live in. What it cannot do is replace medical care. It cannot replace cancer screening. It cannot replace a colonoscopy that is overdue, a mammogram that keeps getting postponed, or a conversation with your doctor about changing symptoms you keep trying to explain away. It cannot explain away blood in the stool, unexplained weight loss, unusual bleeding, a new lump, a cough that does not go away, new trouble swallowing, or exhaustion that feels different from ordinary tiredness. Those are not things to outwalk. That is especially important for older adults because one of the most dangerous habits I see is not laziness, it is delay. It is the habit of hoping a symptom will pass because you have been eating a little better, walking a little more, and trying to be healthier. I respect those efforts. I encourage them. But healthy habits should make you more responsible, not more avoidant. So yes, protect the walk, build your day around it if you can. Let it become one of the most faithful things you do for your body, but do not ask it to carry a responsibility it was never meant to carry alone. And once you understand that, the final message becomes the one that matters most after 60. What do these small daily choices really add up to over the next 1, 3, or 5 years of your life? Before you lean too heavily on any daily habit, I need to give you one very important warning. Walking can be one of the smartest things you do after 60, but it is not a guarantee, it is not a treatment, and it is not a reason to ignore symptoms your body may already be trying to show you. If you are dealing with unexplained weight loss, blood in the stool, a new lump, unusual bleeding, a cough that does not go away, persistent abdominal pain, trouble swallowing, or a level of fatigue that feels clearly different from your usual tiredness, do not tell yourself that a healthier routine is enough. Those are situations where you need medical evaluation, not just good intentions. This also matters if you have a strong family history of cancer, a personal history of polyps, smoking, heavy alcohol use, diabetes, obesity, or chronic inflammatory conditions. In those cases, prevention is even more important, but so is screening and honest follow-through with your doctor. The goal of this video is not to create fear. It is to help you stop overlooking the quiet habits that shape risk over time, while still taking warning signs and age-appropriate cancer screening seriously. What you protect quietly now may decide how you live 5 years from today. After 60, the body is still capable of healing, adapting, and serving you well, but it is no longer as forgiving of neglect, delay, or the quiet strain of habits repeated without much thought. That is the deeper truth behind this entire conversation. Most serious decline does not arrive in one dramatic moment. It builds in the background. It builds through low-grade inflammation, poor recovery, too much sitting, too little movement, missed warning signs, and the slow normalization of symptoms that should have made us pause sooner. That is why I wanted to speak to you so directly today, not to frighten you, but to help you see more clearly what may be taking shape long before it becomes obvious. One of the hardest parts of aging is that the body can look stable on the outside while important changes are happening underneath. You may still be getting through your day. You may still be handling your responsibilities. You may still be telling yourself that the fatigue, the stiffness, the extra weight around the middle, the interrupted sleep, or the drop in stamina is simply what happens at this age. Sometimes age is part of the story, but sometimes what looks ordinary is actually the beginning of a more serious drift. And if you wait until the body is forced to speak loudly, you may be giving up time you could have used to protect yourself. That is why small daily choices matter more now, not less. At 30, the body can absorb a great deal of inconsistency. At 60, 70, or 80, the margin for error becomes smaller. A daily walk may not look impressive. Better sleep may not feel dramatic. Choosing a more supportive meal, standing up more often, following through on screening, or taking a new symptom seriously may seem almost too simple to matter. But after 60, those choices are no longer minor. They shape circulation, metabolism, inflammation, resilience, energy, independence, and the internal environment your cells must live in every single day. And that is the part I want you to remember. Health in the next 1 to 5 years will be shaped less by what you intend to do someday and more by what you repeat starting now. If you make these adjustments, if you walk more faithfully, recover more honestly, and stop dismissing what your body is trying to tell you, there is real reason for hope. You may not control everything. No doctor can promise that. But you can absolutely change the direction of your habits, and that often changes more than people realize. It can mean better stamina, steadier function, sharper awareness, earlier detection, and a body that is under less strain as the years move forward. But the opposite is also true. If you continue to drift, if you keep telling yourself that later is soon enough, if you treat warning signs as inconvenience instead of information, the cost may not show up all at once. It may show up quietly in the form of less strength, less reserve, less recovery, and fewer options when something finally does go wrong. So do not wait for fear to become your motivator. Make wisdom your motivator. Protect the walk. Protect your sleep. Protect your follow-through. Protect your future while you still have the power to do it. Because aging is inevitable, but passive decline is not. And very often, the most powerful protection is not dramatic. It is faithful, thoughtful, and repeated. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.